Gentlemen, welcome back to the mess, which is my desk. And in this episode, we are going to be discussing the DW Hobby Rainbow Flying Wing. Now, as you can tell by the state of mine, I have pushed mine to the limits and way beyond. And the reason why I did this to mine, and remember, I bought this one, this exact one, which you can see in front of your screen, and you know it's the right one, because you'll notice it doesn't have an EDF on it anymore. I pushed this to complete destruction. And I mean complete destruction. And let's be frank here, my bright ideas of sticking that great big EDF unit on there got completely scarpered. And the reason for that is that I quickly worked out the limits of this model just wouldn't cope with a huge, great big EDF like that on there. And to be fair, the Bonsai would probably only just about cope with that. So in this episode, we are going to be looking, and you can follow me along in the destruction of the Rainbow Flying Wing. And literally, I really did push her to the limits. But there's a key note here, is that I learned what her limits were. And Banggood are sending me another one of these to me for review. And the thing is, I now know exactly how to set her up. And there's one massive tip for you, and it's on the opposite side of this wing. And I'll cover that with you in a few moments. Now, before we get to that, and before we get to the setup, I'd like just to make the point is that I tried mounting an EDF unit on there. I made loads of mistakes, and I like sharing my mistakes, because if you can learn from my mistakes, then that is happy days. So I had the EDF mounted on there with the wrong thrust angle. I had it the wrong way round. It was just kind of a joke. But on the flip side, remember, I've only actually been flying for a couple of months, and I'm just sharing this journey as I learn, just like you learn by watching others. And I'd never set an EDF unit up before, so yeah, that was quite a good fun. I totally had it the wrong way around. Also, we took this up to a slope near Stroud here in the United Kingdom, and we flew this in 38 miles an hour, maybe 40 mile an hour wind, and it just could not cope with the sheer thrust. And by the way, if you want to see visually how crazy it was on that slope, literally just a couple of days ago, let me get this up on my screen. There is a video called, where is it? Not this low. Heads Up. Okay, there's a video called Heads Up, Zach Speed ejected by the slope. That will give you an idea of what the wind conditions were like up there on the slope. And a little model like this, oh, it couldn't keep up with that, and it really did get ejected from the slope. But like I said, I've been and found a really good mix of motor and power and setup now, and I'll cover that at the end of this episode with you. So with that said, let's get across to the flight line and watch this Flappy Bird flap. Oh, and if you don't know what I mean by Flappy Bird flap, you'll find out in a minute. What I might do is go down a little bit on the slope. Yeah, let's do it. I'm so glad we got that on camera. That was mad.
If you're going to put a high power setup on this, you might need a bit more carbon.
Yeah, just a tad. So then we saw that the DW Rainbow Flying Wing could just not cope with, I think we saw on the little speedometer, for the little instrument for measuring the wind power, is that, what did we have, up to something like 38 miles per hour wind? Absolutely crazy, and this thing could just not cope with it. Now, on the flip side, what I then did was that I brought this back home and I decided to take a different tact with it. So instead of trying to overpower it, instead of trying to fly it in ridiculous conditions, what I then did was I swapped the motor round to an Emax, let me get this right, it's an Emax CF2805. Now on that flight I did have a bigger motor, and unfortunately, because I dug out so much foam at the front, I could only really fit a 3S battery in. Now I didn't have any Velcro with me, so I had been flying this with a 3S battery, and that's what we're going to go and cut to right now. Because what I did is that I made my own pusher mount on the back. In fact, let me just lift this camera up just to show you. That's what I've been and done for my motor mount, and you'll also notice just back there is that I did bring the little bit of plywood further down underneath the motor. It just seemed about right to give it lots and lots of strength. So let's get the camera back there, and I hope you can, yeah, you can see that fine. So that's the pusher motor mount which I've made, and you'll see that I've just hot glued it in there. It's hot glue, and just seems to work really well for this foam. Anyway, let's go and see how she does as a pusher. And yeah, I'm genuinely surprised in it. And I don't know if it's in this one where I make a crash. Have a crash. One thing which I learned is that setting this up as a 3S setup does make a sag quite a bit. Coming down, because I'm sure you've seen my flying, is that I like to take it up, spin it around in the air, and then bring it back around, and then do that with her quite frequently. Is that compared to the other flying wings which I fly, is that this one does sag quite a bit in those maneuvers, and the reason for that, I'm guessing, is just the wingspan or the wing layout on them. This one, because I've ran it with a 3S battery, it just had basically too much weight in it, so it really did sag its bottom round, and it caught me out a couple of times. And again, this is one of the reasons why I'm making this video for you, is that, like I said, I found a really good setup, but we need to find out how I got to know that that setup is the better setup of them all. So let's go and cut across, and let's see how around, what's that? We had the EDF, we had the slope which almost killed it, and then round 3, things are looking better. Right, let's go. Plenty of thrust. Alright, to launch, sir. Whoa! That's better. Yeah, I'm getting knocked around a bit. Yeah, definitely from left to right. Whoa, that was close. It wasn't, was it? It looks it from here. Choppy over there to the left. I got properly knocked out. Right, land him. Oh, landed. Look at that, showing off. Oh, we ejected the battery. No surprise there. Right. We need more movement in the elevons. Besides that, brilliant fun. I'm going to go and tweak my settings and then rag the nuts off it even more. So we're back at the desk with the rainbow wing, and yeah, I changed these rates down to pretty high rates now. I went on and I flew the absolute nuts off this thing. In fact, you can see how much carnage I've done to it because I pushed it to the limits. Well, I push all my models to the limits every time I fly them, and me, which is normally a good thing. I land in cowpats and things like that. Oh, by the way, there's a little link to that video up there in the top right hand corner. This now brings us to the summary for the rainbow wing. Originally, I made a mistake. I thought it was going to be a great idea that we have this EDF unit on there. It would be a screamer. It would rip the sky a new one. And I'm going to freely admit that that was the completely wrong direction for this model. I then went on, I took it, I put the EDF on there. As we saw in a previous episode, that didn't go particularly well at all, did it? And most of that was down to my fault, let's be fair here. And then I took it to the slope and it flaps a good one. But you'll notice it doesn't flap anymore. And the reason for that is that tip, which I mentioned, is that is how you stop it from flapping. And yes, I have been and epoxied on the bottom a piece of plywood. And you wouldn't believe the difference that makes. Now, ideally, you wouldn't need to do that to a model. So, yeah, this one got the leads hanging out the back. So, ideally, you wouldn't need to do that to a model. But the amount of area which we've got here and the single piece of carbon fibre which they give us, and remember, they do give us carbon fibre, it's just not enough. And you'll see that I've put some extra pieces in here, and then there's another piece along the bottom as well, is that it's too thin for the amount of stress that these wings get compared to the height or the depth of the actual wing we get here. But in other words, basically, if they had not cut out that chunk there, okay, and then put the motor back, okay, it probably would have been a lot better wing, okay, and we wouldn't need to do something like that on the back. But now that I have put that bit of plywood, which is only about 3-4 mil plywood on the bottom, has absolutely transformed it. And I now know exactly what I'm going to do when I receive the freebie, which Banggood. So I don't know if you know the story for this one. I saw this one come into stock and I thought it was really, really cool. But it literally just sold out that day on Banggood. So I had to buy the EDF version. Hey, it's a wing. You know how much I love flying wings. So I had to have one. But I thought it would be really, really cool to be able to make a decent review for you on the pusher model. And I Googled it, and then I actually found a post in the RSC forums and got in contact with the guys at Banggood saying, look, you're offering these for review. Can you send me one? Because I've already been and bought the EDF version, but I'd love to see the pusher version. Now, heads up, I think from Mr. T, okay, you know who you are, one of the chaps who comments on my channel very, very frequently. Thank you, by the way, fella. Is that he's already mentioned that he's not been very impressed with the pusher mount on the back. And I'm guessing it's because they've got this super thin plywood. Now, what I did, so Mr. T, this is aimed at you specifically, and hopefully the one which Banggood is sending me will turn up soon, okay? Because by the looks of it, it got rejected by the port and they've had to resend it, which, to be fair, if you buy a lot from China, you know that kind of happens from time to time. So, Mr. T, this tip is aimed at you. What I did was take some 3 or 4mm plywood, and that's how I mounted mine. Like I showed in the earlier part of this episode, is that I did just hot glue on an extra piece on the back, and that seems to have worked absolutely brilliantly. So, coming on to the setup which I will personally be putting in the new Rainbow Wing when it turns up. And that is actually very, very simple. What I'll be doing is keeping with exactly the same motor. So the motor is an Emax CF2805 5 to 6 inch prop, which is perfect for this model. Now, the propeller I got on there is a 50-55. I would strongly not suggest that. A 50-45 would be a much more appropriate propeller for this model, especially is that I've been running this with 3S, but in reality is that this model is far, far more suited to a 2S setup. Now, you may be wondering, well, Matt, don't you just love to rag the nuts and make your models go super fast? And the answer is yes, I do. I have a mental Bonsai which does about 60, 70 plus mile an hour, and it's absolutely bonkers, but I can only ever manage a couple of flights in it because if you blink, it's gone out of the sky. It just covers the ground ridiculously fast. Whereas my baby Bonsai flying wing is the one which I fly with a 2S setup, is that I'll just sit there, just stand there on the flight line, and I will just cane 6, 8, 10, 12 batteries back to back. And trust me, do you want to see how many batteries I got? And I bought these specifically for the baby Bonsai. That's how many, and there's more here as well. So there's 2, 4, 6, there's 8 there, and I know that I've got a dozen 2S batteries. And the reason why I've got a dozen 2S batteries is because I do rag the nuts off my baby Bonsai, and I do run it on a 2S setup, and every single time I fly I just have so much fun. And this Rainbow Wing is gonna be just as much fun as the baby Bonsai. So my original idea of just making it a sky screamer, I was just beyond the limits of the model. Instead, when the new one turns up, like I said, I know exactly what I'm going to go and do. Number one is that I'm going to put a bottom plate on her. Okay, I probably won't use such thick plywood as I did. That's all I had to hand at the time. I've got some thinner stuff on the way to me. And I'll definitely epoxy it on there. It made a really good seal on the bottom. Number two, apparently the pusher mount on the back isn't the best. So I will be using some of the 4mm plywood to make my own, and I will be using hot glue to extend that and make the mount on the back. But I will not be digging out the front so I could fit a great big 3S battery in there. Instead, I'm going to go and keep it as 2S, and that will balance out perfectly on the front of the nose there. And again, I can't see because my marks are gone off the bottom of here, but is that it will balance out perfectly with a 2S battery, and that means that we can have lighter equipment in there. So right now I've got a 20 amp speed controller in there, which is just completely overkill. I can tone that down to say a 12 amp tiny little speed controller. The servos, yeah, let's be frank here, they would be better off if they were mounted further down the wing, and that's what I'm going to do on the new one which turns up, is that I will mount the servo as far down as the wing as I can without having to put in an extension on the servo lead. So it'll probably be over here somewhere. And also on the elevon, so let me just move that servo around if she'll move, is in that elevon is that while the crease on here is still the best crease I've ever seen, or the best hinge I've ever seen on an EPP model, and included an EPO model, so flexible, is that it does actually need a bit of extra flexibility. So with this one, I've got all the bits of the nose and the bit just fell off there, and that, again, that's my fault because I stuffed it in the ground taking the pee with it. Now I will go and get that glued up, but the mod I will be making on this one and the other one when she arrives is that I will put a carbon fibre rod all the way down the elevon, so that the movement which I put in will affect the whole elevon. So will that servo move? No, that one. They don't. Oh, there they go. I don't know if you can see, is that it's not moving the whole elevon all the way along there. A carbon fibre rod down that will help that. And by the way, carbon fibre rods are not expensive. You can buy a packet of five. A packet of 5 of them, which are 50 centimeters long, or about 19-20 inches long, 2 mil thick, for about £3. So I don't know, say $4, something like that. Super cheap. And I've always got lots, and I'm looking over on the side. Yeah, I've always got lots here because all of my models I do put extra carbon fibre rods in. So that's the setup which I'm going to go with. 2S battery on the front, and I'm just buying these from Hobby King, which are zippy compact 25C, 1000 milliampere hours. They're about £3-ish. Okay, going with the Emax Motor, which is the CF2805, and a 5045. Definitely not a 5055 propeller like I've got on it at the moment. It is a 5045 propeller. And that is going to be a fantastic combination. In fact, I can't wait for the other one to get here. I'm going to go and get this one modded up tonight, and then get these servos down the wing if I can get them out in one piece. And the bit which I dig out, I'll stuff back in that hole. So the colour cut pattern will look a bit odd, but hey, who cares? It's a flying wing. And those of you wondering, can I fly FPV with this? The short answer is that this model is surprisingly really stable in the sky. So I haven't included any FPV footage, but I don't know if you've seen my other videos about the Eachine MC01 FPV camera. Bit of Velcro on the side, and it's an FPV platform. And of course, if you didn't want to put Velcro on the side, you could put it on the black piece on the top and then put it up there. And yeah, surprisingly, and I don't know if you saw it getting knocked around in the video just a few minutes ago, is that it will get knocked around. All models get knocked around in the sky. But this one, when you fly at FPV, it doesn't seem to get knocked around as much as what a Bonsai would do. Now that brings me on to the topic, is this DW Rainbow Flying Wing a Bonsai killer? No. I just straight answer, no, it's not a Bonsai killer. But what it is that it's an extra model for me to rag around the sky on 2S and have a bit of fun with the FPV camera stuck on the side. And for me, that's got to be happy days, because yeah, it's cheaper than the Bonsai. So on a setup basis, even with the Bonsai, I still put carbon fibre rods in it. I do personally feel that whole air fuselage, that main piece there, is a bit, I don't know, underlooked by the creators of the wing. So yeah, we do have to give her a little bit of an armour plate. But to be frankly honest, because we always land these models on the bottom, a bit of hard plate down there is probably going to do it a lot of good. And by putting that plate on there, it really does stiffen it up. And I've been out caning the living daylights out of this. And look, that is how much fun I've had with it. And I don't know, I've done 30 flights, something like that, spread over the last week or so. So since the last video came out, every time I've been going out flying, I've pretty much always taken this one with me. I've always had the Bonsai with me as well. I've caned the Bonsai and I've caned this one. And a model which you can just stick a battery in it, chuck it in the sky and then just rag the nuts off it and just don't care about it, because I don't care about the bonsai and I don't care about this one. Evidence in front of us is that we'll just push it to its limits every single time. So yeah, it's not a bonsai killer, but what it is bloody good fun. So with that said, I sincerely hope that you found not only this video and the previous videos in this series helpful to you, so that you can make an informed decision whether this is a model you want to go for or maybe skip. So with that said, when Banggood's, the freebie one which they sent me, remember I bought this one out of my own cash, when they send me the other version, which will hopefully be here in a couple of days time, I'll do a build video with you. I'll show you what I do to get the servos out here on the wing, the mounting of the plate, the adaptation of the pusher module on the back, and we'll go out and I'll finally hit the record button on the Fat Sharks and get some DVR footage. Yeah, great fun. Brilliant little model. Oh, and it's time for me to go now. But what I'm going to do on the end of this video, I'll include that big sudden gust of gravity which I caught on camera with this one. It was hilarious. Anyway, as always, for myself, Matt, thank you ever so much for taking the time to watch this video. I really do appreciate that. And of course, if you've got any questions or comments, you can let me know in the comment section underneath this video. I would really, really appreciate your feedback. So on that note, as always, from myself, Matt, cheerios!
Let's go.
Engines armed.
Ah, that's way better. Yeah, I'm getting chucked around quite a bit. I'm just flying through it. Yeah, you can see her wobbling up there. Oh, definitely need some trim in that. Whee! Right, landing, Ben. Landed.
Engine off.
Nice. Need some more elevator in that, and probably a little bit more up. That is really good fun. It's still a little bit floppy, but it does everything which I expect it to do, and comes complete with bug. Does everything which I expect it to do. Just needs a bit more trimming. Happy days.